Hey guys, what is up? Mega Gamer here, and welcome to another gaming news story. I found this article, and there was a lot of interesting stuff in here. I love when companies, a lot of their assets are kind of leaked, and we find out about the in and outs of the company, what's kind of been going on the last few years, stuff that you never would hear about otherwise. Always very interesting, and this story has a lot of interesting layers to it. So I figured I'll make this video so you guys will be informed, because this is pretty cool. There's lots of stuff involved. There's Sony Bend and PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, Uncharted, Infamous. There's all this stuff that I'm just going to dive into now. A link to the article will be in the description, so if you want to read further into it, you can do so. But here is my video, and enjoy. So, a former employee at Sony Bend, she was an artist at the company. She's been there for 8 years, and keep in mind, this is all referring to. She left about 2 years ago, so a lot of what is about to be said probably took place around 2012, maybe a little bit into 2013, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But she did leave quite a while ago, so this news is definitely referring to stories that happened at least a couple of years ago. So just bear with me when I explain all this. So. So she went on Reddit, and of course, it's a Reddit user telling stories, so take this with a grain of salt. It seems all pretty legit, so I believe everything that's said here, but of course this is just on Reddit. This is just some user again, so you never know, but this is what was found on Reddit through discussions. So she responded to another user who hoped for a new siphon filter, and basically dumbed down that question. So it looks like siphon filters not coming, not for PlayStation 4, not for not for PlayStation Vita. She said don't hold your breath on that one. She went further into siphon filter, basically saying, and I haven't played the game, so I'm just reading what's written here, but apparently the main character was killed off basically so they wouldn't have to make any more siphon filter games. Or at least Gavin, I'm not sure who that is, probably a game director or so on. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm sorry, but yeah. Plus, the game had despite all the praise, it had very low sales, which kind of is a whole nother topic on itself, where it's like you can praise a game to death, but if it doesn't have the sales, it's not going to continue and it's not going to be noticed. One example, in my opinion, is Max Payne 3. I think Max Payne 3 is amazing. I bought it on PS3 and Steam, and the sales just aren't that great. Even for a Rockstar game, it's just not that great, which is very saddening because I think it's an amazing game. And there's plenty of examples. Siphon Filter is probably one as well. It's got a lot of praise, but no sales. So, what do you expect? You're going to get another one. That's just the way. That's just the way of business. Is how it works. And again, there are so many examples of that. So, sales speak louder than praise. So, a game can get a bunch of 2s out of 10s, but if it gets like 5 million sales in the first year, you can bet your ass is going to be a sequel, or it's going to be considered more successful than if it got lots of great reviews and lots of scores, good scores, perfect scores, but then no sales. But that's a tangent. Let's move away from that. She then revealed some details on basically what Sony Bend had been doing. I'm guessing around 2012, like I said earlier, in terms of basically what they're working on. Some interesting stuff, and a lot of this was for the PlayStation Vita. Remember, they made Uncharted Golden Abyss for the Vita, which I loved. I thought it was great. Not Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3 level, but it's still a good Uncharted game, and it was a major system seller. I believe it's the best-selling PlayStation Vita game, although I haven't really checked in a while on that, but I believe it is the best-selling PlayStation Vita game. That, along with Gravity Rush, are my favorite games on the Vita. They're both so good, and I cannot wait for Gravity Rush 2, which is confirmed. I don't know where it is though. I don't know what's happening with that. Hopefully this year. That'll be awesome. But so this goes back to the PlayStation Vita days. They just finished Uncharted Golden Abyss, and this is when they started kicking around ideas. Now, Sony wanted them to make another Uncharted for the Vita, which I'm held down for. Yes, that's awesome. However, it was actually Naughty Dog who kind of stalled the development and said that they don't want Uncharted to be, they don't want people to be burnt out on the franchise, because they were clearly making Uncharted 4. And there's an Uncharted movie coming out next year now. I mean, filming's meant to start really soon, so unless that doesn't happen, they might have to push it back another year or so. But the Uncharted movie is meant to be coming out next year. So that's a new Uncharted game for PS4 and a new movie within 6 months. And this Vita game that they would make probably would come out around that same time as well, if not nowish maybe, even last year, 2014. I'm not 100% sure. Again, it all depends on when they started making it and what their development time, what their dev cycle was. But it does make sense, especially if an Uncharted collection is thrown in the Misted Well sometime this year, which I really do believe another studio is making Uncharted collection for PS4. But if you include that, then that is a lot of Uncharted, and I still would have preferred them to let Sony Bend make an Uncharted 2 for the Vita, which would probably be awesome. It's just a shame that and Sony tried to get Naughty Dog to say yes to it. Sony begged them basically, but Naughty Dog wouldn't do it. And it kind of says another thing as well, because it's like Sony's the one in charge here. If Sony really wanted them to do it, they could just tell them to do it. They could just greenlight the game. So it's really interesting that they're actually letting Naughty Dog take a word and actually make the final call technically. That's really speaks to how much Sony love Naughty Dog. And I mean, Naughty Dog are arguably their best studio, the most precious studio. That's almost unarguable, that statement. So that is pretty interesting that they're letting Naughty Dog make the calls in that regard. Another interesting little tidbit here is that they were actually pitching some ideas for an Infamous game on the Vita, which that would have been fucking awesome as well. I don't know what happened to that. It would have this would have been a Vita exclusive as well, and I would have been so down for that. Any big IPs on the Vita, like Uncharted was awesome on the Vita. They needed Infamous and God of War and even Gran Turismo. They needed these kind of IPs on. They needed PlayStation mascots. They needed these PlayStation IPs on the Vita. And it's too much of an indie machine, unfortunately. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm really happy with my Vita. I've got almost 70 games on my Vita. Hell, my memory card I got a 16 gig memory card. It can't even fit half the games on there that I own, and that's really annoying. I gotta get a 64 gig. But don't get me wrong. I love the Vita. It's got a lot of games, but the problem is the big AAA titles. We're not getting enough of those anymore, and that's a shame. And Sony were obviously pushing. Because Sony Bend were obviously very good at making portable games. They really wanted them to do it, and it just wasn't working out. They were also going to do another IP, which I assume was for the Vita as well, which was like a kind of a futuristic sci-fi setting, and they already had like the city and the character kind of not mapped out, but I guess discussed, and that some of the gameplay elements would be like, the character you players can run up and scale buildings with like jet boots and all this other stuff, and that does sound pretty cool as well. I could totally get down with an IP like that, like a futuristic sci-fi city. Naughty Dog was going to do stuff like that as well, which that would have been very exciting too. I mean, I'm not the biggest sci-fi guy in the world, but that does sound awesome. I want to play a game like that, especially on the Vita. That'd be awesome. But it looks like around this point, they're chucking ideas. This has been going on for about several months to a year, according to this, when it looks like they finally decided to drop the Vita and just make a game for the PlayStation 4. Now, there's already a lot of leaks. I'm not going to get into that right now about what their PlayStation 4 project is, but it's obvious that they're kind of like hardwired into that now. Because, like I said, you're going to remember this is all taking place in like 2012. This didn't happen in the last 6 months, so we shouldn't be worried about Sony Bend taking ages to get their next game out. I imagine it will come out in 2016. I have no idea, but that's my guess. It will be sometime next year. It won't be a huge release, but it will just be sometime in 2016. Maybe, midway for the year, or like an April or May release, something like that. I don't know. That would just be my guess. It's not going to be a huge deal for Sony, but it's going to come out next year, I believe. So the PS4 title, I'm sure, is fine, but this is all very interesting as well. They were a little upset because they made this whole engine for the Vita game, and they only ended up using it for one game, which was Golden Abyss. Obviously, they've now. I mean, it wasn't a complete waste. They said like they believe they had Zipper Interactive, who made Unit 13 for the Vita. I think they said that they're pretty sure they used their engine, and they did spread it around a bit, their engine, so it wasn't a complete waste. But now they moved on to PlayStation 4. They moved on to Unreal Engine 4. Which, Unreal Engine's awesome, so that's cool. And Yeah, I think basically the person writing this, she says that she's pretty sure the shift to PS4 was just a desperate bid to get something greenlit. Which, you know, you don't want to be a game company. You don't want your publisher over your neck for 2-3 years and you still haven't have anything greenlit yet. You want to get something greenlit. So it's obvious that was the case. There was a lot of pitches and a lot of things tossed, but that's just how it is. So I thought that was very interesting. It was a very interesting story for Sony Bend. I really would have dug all three of those games that I mentioned. You know, new Uncharted, new Infamous, and that sci-fi IP. Those all sounded awesome for the Vita. Anything that's like a big title for the Vita is awesome. We really need to do with some of those because the Vita's just not selling, and this is one of the main reasons. The misconception that it has no games, and then not so much of a misconception that it has no AAA games. They just don't have any more, is the truth. Now, I don't know. I really do hope Sony Bend makes something for the Vita, especially if it's an Uncharted or something. Maybe they can do it later down the line, way after Uncharted 4's and all that done. I don't know. I just thought it was a very interesting read, and it's curious. Because Sony Bend, they're a good studio. They're a very good studio. And they've been doing a lot of portable stuff lately, but now they're getting back into the console groove, and that's exciting. However, there's no siphon filter. We don't know what they're making. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see for that. But again, I really like seeing this stuff you're never going to hear unless someone goes on Reddit who used to work at the company for 8 years, decides to spill the beans on the majority of it. She said she could have spilled the beans on what they actually are working on right now, but she said that's a bit too much, and I agree. It's like, you don't want to be an asshole to the company that like paid you for 8 years and just kind of like reveal their big secrets and that. This stuff's fine. It's just stories and all of that. But actually going out and revealing what they're doing, what they're going to release when they probably got plans for E3 and all of that. That's a dick move, so I'm glad she didn't go that extra mile or whatever. But again, I'll link you to the article in the description. And I don't know, I just thought this was a really interesting read. So those who are curious about Sony Bend these last couple of years, there you go. That's basically what they've been up to. So thanks for watching. I'm Mega Gamer, and see you around.
Damn, what's this button?